Hey guys, in this video we're gonna learn about Visual Studio Code, which is VS Code for short. VS Code is a must-have tool for web designers in 2024. So today we're gonna cover the basics. We're also gonna cover the must-have extensions for VS Code. So let's get to it. And the reason why, well, quickly, VS Code is important because most of the tutorials that you will see in YouTube, whether it's CSS or HTML, JavaScript, most of them will be using VS Code, which is why it's really critical to start just using VS Code from day one, so that when you watch those tutorials, you can follow and it'll make more sense. So let's get started. So here I have VS Code opened. If you have not installed VS Code, go ahead and install it. It's a free tool. You can just Google VS Code. Let me just open Google real quick. So if you just search for VS Code, can download and install the latest version. So once installed, you can open it up and this is what you're gonna see if it's blank. One thing that might be different depending on which theme you use. If you use the dark theme, it'll be darker, or by default I think the menu bar is on the left side. I like it being on the right side just because, coming from developer background, most of the tools, you know, more complex tools like Visual Studio or Java tools, usually menus on the right side, so which is why I prefer to have the bar on the right side. But it's really a preference thing, so it's up to you which way you want to use. The important thing is on the menu bar here, the icon, to understand which is what. So the first one is really important, which is gonna show you all the files you have. The second is debug, which we probably will not get into today. That's more useful when you're actually developing code. Next is search, which is really also important when trying to find stuff in all of your files all at once, or find a replace, which is a really handy tool. Source control, we'll cover that in another video. And some of them these are the extensions I've installed, which will not use for today's video. And the other important one is the extensions, which we'll use to install some extensions. And we'll cover some of the important extensions today, right? So the first thing you want to do is just gonna go File, Open Folder, and you can just navigate to an empty folder. Here I have Hello World. That's what I'm gonna use for today's tutorial. It's just an empty folder. You select that folder and it's gonna open it up. As I mentioned, the first icon here is gonna show all the files you have. Because that folder is empty, we don't have any files right now. So let's see if we can add some files. So the first thing I want to do is just add maybe a couple folders. Here I'm gonna add maybe a style folder. I'm gonna add maybe images folder. And the other thing I want to add is just index HTML file. Now, those of you who are really absolute beginners in web design and you don't know what index means, so index usually is the first page that opens up when you go to any website. You can think of it like the default page. So we always start with the default page, and we call it index. HTML is the extension for all the HTML files. So, that's getting super basic, but let's just go with this. So it's an empty file, and I have empty folders here. And for today's tutorial, we really want to just do the basics to understand how we get this set up and just run it so that we can see the changes we make live, right? That's what we're gonna demo today. So now I have a default empty HTML file. So next thing I want to do is hit exclamation point like this. Now this is gonna pop up what's called Emmet abbreviations, and this is also an extension which is, I believe, is installed by default. You don't have to install this. This is installed in VS Code by default. When you hit enter, what's gonna happen? It's gonna create an empty HTML document for you, like the HTML code for this index file. Any HTML file should have this structure where you have the document type, HTML, head tag, body tag, and closing tags, right? This is like XML-like format. If you're not familiar with HTML, this is what it looks like. And let's start making some changes. So I'm gonna change the title to Hello World, and I'm just gonna, in the body tag, I'm also gonna type in Hello World, just so we can see something. Okay, now that's all I typed and I saved, right? Now if you go back to your folder here outside of Visual Studio Code, actually the other way you could go to that is an easy way I would show you. This is really helpful, by the way. Comes up a lot. So just right click on a file or folder. You could say reveal in file explorer and just gonna open up this window for you automatically, so you don't have to like go find it. Okay, it's really quick way to get to the folder. Now if I just open this in Chrome by default, without again installing anything, any extensions or none of that, it's just gonna show us our hello world. And if I do right click inspect, it's gonna open up the developer view in Chrome, and you will see the exact HTML code that we have in our file, which is by the way, you know, any website you visit, this is what's called a client-side code, which means anyone has access to viewing the HTML of your website. So they can just right-click inspect and see what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript you have for the website. So far, because we don't have anything else, see our CSS styles is empty, and we can only view hello world. That's all we have. This is the entire HTML of the index file here. Now that's good. So now let's say we make a change, we make this true and save, right? So we have to go back and find our window again. Okay, I found our browser window here. So and we'll see how we can solve this issue of finding the windows, because it's also a challenge, right? So now I made a change. If I refresh my page, see, I see that too. But as you can see, it takes a couple of clicks, right? You gotta find the window and then you have to refresh the page to see your changes. So we're gonna solve that today. First, a couple things actually. If you have the means to get a second monitor, I highly recommend to do that, so that you can move this to a second monitor and develop, make your Visual Studio changes on one monitor, and you'll see the changes on the second monitor. So it makes developing really quick and easy, versus trying to do everything in one monitor, and it's a constant chase between the browser window and VSCode, right? So one thing we can do is organize our windows next to each other. You can also dock them, but I don't really like the dock feature. It doesn't work well in Windows somehow. But anyway, this way you have your browser window on the right side, and you have your HTML on the other side. So if you make changes here, you save, you just refresh the page, and then you see the change. So that's good. So now let's try to improve this workflow, right? So for that we need an extension, and I'll show you how that works. So if you go to extensions, search for live server. So this is it. I have it installed. That's why it says uninstalled. But for you, I'll show you to install. So just click on it, install it. By the way, if you do go to your extensions here, if you don't search anything, it shows you all the installed ones. Now I have a lot of them installed. We're not going to cover all of them today, but I'll just show you the important ones. See the live server, this one. And the way this works is, let me show you. So you saw we had to go and find our folder, right, to navigate to this index file, and then open it up in the browser here. You kind of save all those steps by simply clicking on this. Once you install that live server extension, you'll get this go live button here. So what's gonna happen now is, if you click on this, it's gonna create what's called a server, local server, to display the HTML. And for now it looks similar, right? The only thing changed is really the URL. You'll see some IP address stuff here, but don't pay attention to that. It's not really important. But you'll see the same thing. Now the only distinction is that now, let's say I make a change here, I make it 4. As soon as I save, see it automatically refreshed. So it's really a critical feature. As you're developing code, you're making a lot of code changes, you want your browser to reflect the changes without you refreshing it all the time. And that's what this live server does. So in a lot of the examples online, you'll see they're using this. So that's how you install and use this. So again, first thing, install Go live server, and when you're developing in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or any client-side language, go ahead and open Go live server, do the Go live server, and then start paying attention to your window on the right side. Or if you have a second monitor, do it, move it to the second monitor, right? So let's talk about the next extension. So next extension I want to talk about is these shortcuts above. This actually doesn't come with Visual Studio by default. You have to install this, and it's really helpful, although it's unknown. It's not that popular extension. I think a lot of people don't know about it, but I found it really useful. Again, more complex development tools do have these features. That's why I was missing these features when I started using VSCode. That's why I had to find this. So it's called shortcut menu bar. So if you just search for shortcut menu bar, okay. So now I have this installed, but you can install it. It'll show you these. It's gonna install the shortcuts above. And what this does, let me show you some of the features it has, right? First of all, when you start copying, pasting code or making changes, you often will have unformatted code like this. Your tags will not be aligned, things like that. So it drives me nuts, and most developers do like things aligned. So as a web designer, you gotta follow like the pros, right? And what you need to do is make sure your code is well aligned and formatted. So see, my code is not really formatted well now. My body tag is over here. So this extension has this feature called Beautify, which basically is gonna format my code. So if I click on this, see, it's automatically gonna align everything for me, which is really handy to do. Now if I have a div, and let's say my div is all the way here, right? If I try to format, see, it's gonna put it in place. So it's really handy feature. So as soon as I save, again, see, my text is coming up here. Next thing it's gonna do is, let's say I have another file here called about.html, right? Just like our website, this is about, and I'll do the same thing, exclamation point, hit enter, and I'll say about page as the title, and I'll say about page here. Actually, this time I'm gonna do cool little trick that Emmet gives you. So if you do, you can start typing h1, which is a header tag, hit enter, see, it comes from Emmet, hit enter, it's gonna give you that tag, automatically open and close tags, right? So I'm gonna save. Now if I do have to try to close some of these things so I can, let me just expand my window here. See, now I have about, if I go to about HTML, I see my about page, right? Now let's say you were on the about page, but you want to go back to the last page you were working on. This is where these handy arrow tools do navigate back and forth. So if I go to back, it's going to take me back to the last page I was working on, which is index. Again, really handy developer tool, okay, to go back and forth between the pages you're working on. So next, there's other features, but those are the important ones. I would highly suggest to install the shortcut menu bar. The other ones, there were other extensions, but I think this video is getting long. But I would recommend for you to install, but I will not demo those features today. But go ahead and install something called Prettier. What this does, it basically, you can learn more about here. It's similar. It makes your code prettier. Again, it does more formatting, so this is more handy when you are doing more development work like JavaScript or React or things like that, and it aligns stuff better. The other couple of extensions, if you do want to start in React, I would suggest to install this React code snippets. And this one has actually this one has a video that shows you how it works. So as you can tell, it's as you start typing a shortcut name, and it's gonna, let me see if I can rewind this video. I'm just closing and reopen again. See, as soon as you start typing and then hit enter, kind of like what Emmet does, but for React. That's the other thing I would recommend. But again, those are more advanced tools, but I would highly suggest for the minimum here, install Go Live Server, install the shortcut menu bar. That's gonna get you going with Web Designer setup. So now when you watch online CSS or JavaScript tutorials, you should always kind of create this structure for you. Create a folder, right? Open the folder, create the files. Actually, a couple other things. I think other things I wanted to show you. Let's say we have another file in the styles called style.css. What I want to do is reference this style file in my index file. So instead of remembering what that syntax looks like, what Emmet gives you, if you just start typing a link and then you can select link CSS, it's gonna automatically create this link structure for you. See how it is pointing to style CSS, but our style CSS is in the styles folder. So all you have to do is just type in styles and then hit enter. It's gonna find the file for you, right? So now let's say I have let's do one more trick here, and then we'll wrap up the video. So with styles, you can create divs with like either you can come here and say plus, and let's say this is my first, but for my second div, I wanna have this class automatically appended to the div for me. For that, you can just start with typing with a dot, right, and then type whatever the class name you want to have. Let's say my second. Hit enter. It's gonna see automatically create a div for you with that class name. And now we can go back to our CSS here. Again, classes always start with a dot in front of it in style sheets, right? And then you can say, let's say background color is red, and my second one, again, these IntelliSense, these things that are popping up for you, this is called IntelliSense, which basically helps you find the things you're looking for without trying to remember exactly, or the entire spelling and all that. Makes things a lot easier, right? I save this. So now if I save, right, if I go back to my live server, see, I didn't have to refresh the page. It automatically did that for you. But because I don't have anything here, let's say type in something, save, and it's gonna open my, of course, doesn't look great, the color, but you get the point. Emmet, I would say we'll take a whole nother video just Emmet alone, because Emmet has so many great features. You start typing something, let's say you want to do div times 5, right? Let's say you want to create 5 divs. You hit enter, it's going to create 5 divs. So there's a lot of features for Emmet. I would recommend read up the documentation. And you'll see this being used in a lot of videos, so it's really helpful to know some of the shortcuts for Emmet. That's it, guys, for this video. I hope it was useful. Again, if you have not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and subscribe. I'm gonna do a lot more tutorials this year, making a lot of web design tutorials from start to finish. And this tutorial again was the first one in the series of tutorials that's gonna help you become a web designer. As I said before, this is a must-know tool, VSCode, with some of the critical extensions to have for you to really get into the game of web design. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.